Steven. I'm the organizing director of Community Defense Project, a program that's a part of PrYSM, Providence Youth Student Movement. And just to give you a little context about how PrYSM started, right? PrYSM was founded in 2001, so that was 16 years ago. It's going to be the 16th birthday is actually November 7th. Yeah, so 16 years ago. Talking about the fundraising ones though. That's besides the point. Yeah. So PrYSM started off right in the heart of Providence. That's what I call the heart of Providence, the West End. It's one of the most heavily policed communities in the city of Providence, and that is where a very large percentage of the Cambodian community resides in. So PrYSM works to end street, state, and interpersonal violence within Southeast Asian communities, fostering social justice and youth leadership, and it's led by queer youth and Southeast Asian families. So we understand that when we do the work, the most important component to organizing are the youth. The youth are the future. They're going to be in the forefront, fighting the fight for you when you're at work, right? When you're busy deep in your life with your families, trying to start up and live the American dream, right? There are going to be youth out there fighting for your rights, for your kids' rights, for the rights of future generations and communities of color that are disenfranchised and marginalized. So I think what really pushed PrYSM in their work is that we understood the importance of solidarity, right? So when we speak about the most oppressed and the most marginalized communities, we're talking about, sorry, I'm just like stumbling over my words. When we talk about the most marginalized and most oppressed communities, we talk about the Black communities. Because they really built this nation and continue to receive racism and all the atrocities that come with it, right? So growing up, there were laws and policies that were made, like Jim Crow laws, right? To keep marginalized communities at the bottom of the chain of America, right? And learning from that kind of history is what really connected Southeast Asian communities to Black communities, because the struggle for us was the same. Over 80% of Southeast Asians live on welfare. And that was since we started the influx from refugee resettlement after the Vietnam War. So the environments that we lived in were very harsh. And the environment was also a very large key to how we were educated and how we learned, how we grew up. We are all a product of our environment. Where we live, where we grow up, the people we interact with, the people that teach us, a lot of that is passed. A lot of that is taken in and passed on to the next generation of youth. And every generation is supposed to get better, but we're still living in the 60s. Slavery is still real. The only thing we really got is the opportunity to vote in elections. And I kind of went off tangent there. Bringing that back to education, right? We understood the environment of education played an important role in how we grew up and became leaders of tomorrow, right? And what we saw as a very large piece to the reason why youth are not invested in, and youth from more poor communities don't make it to college. It's the environment we live in, and that's something that PrYSM understood very clearly, because as Southeast Asians coming to America, we were like, I don't know if there's a word for it, but we were targeted by the state in alarming rates for things like being in a gang, or not going to school, or just like being Asian. And we saw a lot of that in the black communities too, right? So when PrYSM started, just going right back to the beginning, bro. When PrYSM started, we saw that. We understood that we needed to make the communities and environments that the children we invest in and like flourish need to be safe. They need to be places where creativity can be cultivated in every student that's striving for a better life, like all of us, right? So we started diving deep into how we could change that, how we could make our community safer, how we could make it so that the youth don't have to worry about walking at home at 7 o'clock at night and being stopped by police because they're wearing a black hoodie and a really big backpack. Some people have to go to work after school. Some people have to help their families survive. Some people might not even have a chance to go to school because of the environment that they're brought up in. And it's not fair to a lot of the youth growing up, because then they're at different places in the race of life. Some people are pushed back, some people don't even get to start when you do. And that inequality is kind of what sets the tone for how the country is going to be, right? And if we're going to change that, we want everyone to be equal and to have equal rights. We need to make it so that everyone can start at the same place, right? That's what true equality is. So we started working a lot with the youth in Providence, and we're learning about things like the gang database. Has anybody ever heard of that? Gang database? Yeah? 2 people. Amazing, right? That's existed since 2004, the gang database, officially. Before that, it was just called a folder with information in it. There were no clear policies and protocols around it, so the police could pretty much do whatever they wanted with it. And when youth went to court for truancy because they couldn't make it to school because they had to work or stay home and take care of their brothers and sisters that weren't old enough to go anywhere, and their family, mothers and fathers, had to be at work 12 hours a day. Officers that recognized those students and those youth would say, oh, this person's a gang member. And then the sentences and punishments that were given to them are much more severe than their counterparts in school. And it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair at all. Why is it that when you had to miss 2 days of school, you get punished and you have to miss another week? Why is that? They have these zero-tolerance policies that do not invest or help nurture our students. They're literally left behind, And the way we learned to get youth to really be more involved and more encouraged to go to school and to educate themselves was through organizing. We learned that when there was a sense of community, a sense of togetherness, a sense of solidarity within a group of people, they work much harder at their goals. And when you're fighting for something that you believe is true and just, it's incredible how much you would do to make sure that that happens. brought up the Community Safety Act. It was something we worked on for a really, really long, I think like 7 years. It started off as state legislature, but it got watered down because there were a lot of representatives from the state, like through the House of Representatives or senators, that just took the bill on their own and like took out really good parts to it. So we knew that people outside of Providence were not there to help us. So we decided in 2011 that we would work within the city of Providence. So we created an ordinance called the Community Safety Act. It has 12 different provisions that go over things like youth and immigrants, privacy, stops and searches, all the way to things like equal language access. If you want to learn more about it, you can talk to me. That's being implemented January 1st, 2018. We recently just passed it in June. It took 3 years, to make that happen. My sister was actually one of the youth. She was about, I think, 13 at the time, that started that campaign. And she's a senior now, getting ready for college. And we just finished it. So a lot of the things that we fight for, that we feel is just so that we can make lives better for the future youth, are going to take a really long time because those changes are huge, they're dramatic, but they're needed. And without that, we can't see people like my sister wanting to go to college. Before, when I first started school, the college completion rate for Cambodians were 12%. So 12% of the Cambodians in America got a bachelor's degree. Only 12%. The Asian American, if you looked at it through the census, in the Asian American category, there was a staggering 47%. 47%. So you can see the difference in how our communities are brought up, what happens in there, and how people operate in there. And I think if you can change what's happening around you, you have the ability to change the future for you and make it even better than what it is right now.